Hello and welcome to the Practice Forward podcast. I'm your host, Owen Bush, and today we're joined by Eric Rains.
Hi, Owen. How are you?
It's great to see you, Eric. Thanks for joining so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So before we get into the official intro, how are you doing? How's your week been?
It's been good. It's fortunately we're busy and lots of exciting things that are beginning to get underway. So
Great.
it's been a good week.
Excellent. So you're listening to Practice Forward. It's the show about technology, tools, and ideas reshaping architecture and how practices evolve in the real world. I'm Owen Bush, and today on Practice Forward, we're joined by Eric Rains. He's the founder and principal of Eric Rains Landscape Architecture, a Connecticut-based studio known for weaving understated, resilient landscapes into some of the region's most complex redevelopments. From award-winning adaptive reuse at Ironworks in South Norwalk, to climate-resilient pocket parks, to shaping the public realm of White Plains' $2.5 billion District Galleria. Eric has spent 3 decades proving that landscape isn't just the backdrop, it's the frame, the infrastructure, and the public invitation. With a quiet, simple, intuitive ethos, deep experience in permitting and leadership roles from the Norwalk Parking Authority to CTASLA, his work bridges ecology, regulation, and community value. So it's great to have you today, Eric.
Thank you. Thank you. It's quite an introduction.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's get started before you founded ERLA. So just to get to know you a little bit as a person, I mean, what are some of the early environments or experiences that shaped your sense of place?
Well, it's funny because before entering my curriculum in landscape architecture, I didn't really realize the role that some of the places I had visited and been to as a kid and growing up, that the role that they played or would play in this career. And, you know, some of them that come to mind, when growing up, I grew up not too far outside New Orleans, Louisiana. And for no intentional reason, as a family, we were in New Orleans all the time. And I developed, I think from there, an appreciation for cities and an appreciation for the amenities that cities offer. You know, the botanical gardens, the public spaces, the plazas that are sprinkled throughout the city. They all played a role in being, you know, having spent time in those over, you know, many years and seeing people use them in all the different ways, and then discovering landscape architecture, you know, later, it all just sort of clicked. So I would say, you know, most of it was shaped by that particular city. And then in school, my goal was to graduate with a year's worth of experience in the field. So I interned for companies in Dallas, Texas, and Hilton Head, South Carolina, and Memphis, Tennessee. So that just broadened the experience. And then fortunately, I was able to graduate with a year's equivalent of time, which paid off for me.
Well, that's, and you know, so just for our audience, a lot of what Eric does is about bringing landscape into cities. A lot of these kind of uninviting, unrelenting, relentlessly dark interiors and uninviting, dating, aging structures, and thinking about ways of kind of reimagining those spaces as really vibrant public spaces that are really reconnected with bringing landscape back into the city.
And too, a lot of that, a lot of situations, we like you said, we're located in Norwalk, Connecticut, which is a coastal town. And like many coastal towns in Connecticut, there's a lengthy industrial path to the shorelines. So environmentally, there's you know, there's work that has to occur to make the sites buildable. So, you know, sometimes there's some cleanup that has to happen, or, you know, we dug for footings on projects, and 3 feet underground found an intact set of train tracks, train rails.
Uh-huh.
So you never know what you'll see. So
Sure. Yeah.
and which all that contributes to the diversity of the profession and my practice.
Yeah. And so before founding your own practice, you worked in DC and tri-state area. And tell me about some of what you learned in those years, kind of navigating public space and political spaces.
Yeah, right after school. I worked for a firm that whose clientele was primarily in Washington and in downtown and in Baltimore. And fortunately for me, their clientele that I was working with was organizations like Johns Hopkins Hospital and University, McCormick Spice's International Headquarters, Georgetown University. So right out of school, I was able to, through that company, I was able to gain experience in how the profession plays out in a corporate way and in an educational realm through the university work. And so those years that I had in DC gave me really the beginnings of the involvement of the realization that I need to have a very clear understanding of the municipal approval process and what goes into a project, just to get it out of the ground.
So what was the inflection point in 2011 and made you decide you wanted your own practice?
I had moved to Connecticut in 1995 and was with a firm for 15 years where I ran the commercial half of the company. And it just as after 15 years, I'd started thinking about it probably after 13 years or so. And interestingly, I had begun some planning, on paper about what it would be like to have my own firm and what I would need to do to make it successful. And I put it away, and then like a year later, I decided I would start looking at that again. And it was it was literally a year to the month or the last time I looked at it. And so I just told myself, if I'm going to do it, I need to do it and stop going back and forth. And so I explained to my boss, the principal of that company, that what I was doing, and and I assured him that after 15 years in this market, I have a pretty strong network of people that we work with. So I assured him that I would not pursue anybody that was his client, and if as work hopefully came to me, I would take it, but I would not pursue it. And so I launched it, and fortunately, work was there for both his firm and mine, and
Uh-huh.
and it's been great ever since. It's now we just had our 14th anniversary, and
Yeah.
it's been really good.
So, okay, so your design sensibility is self-described as quiet, simple, and intuitive. So seems like this kind of restraint is important to you. So where's a project where that restraint was kind of at risk? And how did you fight for your sensibility?
It's all of our projects pretty much have a design team. So there's, pretty much everything has an architect, a civil engineer, a land use attorney, and of course the owner or the ownership team. And so one of the big challenges sometimes is that the project can begin to feel like the team is designing it and not the professional.
Yeah.
And so when that happens, for me, when that happens, things get added to the project that clutter it, and oftentimes, and they're unnecessary. So it's my role to sort of maintain control of my portion of the project, and work with the team, but at the same time, be clear that the design needs to follow particular paths, and the
Yeah.
end results are always good. I mean, fortunately these teams are highly qualified, professional people that, they're not intentionally trying to take over someone's role or scope of work, but everybody's just sort of got the project on their brain, and they want it to be as good as it could be. So it's not a particular project where it has been a particular challenge, but just in my role in general, I have to represent what I do, and in a clear and professional way, and respond to the team in ways that instill that confidence.
Yeah. So, so obviously, when you're designing here in New York and New England, one of the things landscape designers are thinking about is the change of seasons, how this is going to look in all 4 different seasons, and how it's going to choreograph and change, and new things are going to pop up here and there at different times. So how do you think about choreographing over time?
Well, it's highly important, because if you have something that disappears at particular times of the year, then the space is going to lose its qualities that would probably draw people, um, um, when everything's present. Like, for example, some things go dormant, and if from on a plant material side, and when they go dormant, they die back to the ground. So, if you want the space to have any particular aesthetic year round, then you either need to use elements or plant material that has a structure, or winter interest, you could call it, to maintain the composition, and continue to have the space be inviting, for people. So,
Hmm.
so the seasonality is very important. And if you look at or think about materials, and plant material in particular, as a palette of materials, then you pick from the palette, things that have interest throughout the year.
Yeah.
If you pick a palette of material, and everything has its show at the same time of year, and then the rest of the year it doesn't,
Yeah.
then there's a dynamic that's lost in the space. So it's good to spread out the interest, across the entire space.
What's a good example of that, of a project you've done, or maybe even a project that people could see in person?
Well, you mentioned ironworks. That's certainly the case there, with the um, the the palette of like paving materials and finished materials on the ground, obviously is there throughout the year, and in the winter, when there's less plant material, visible, the textures and the patterns that those have provide seasonal interest. And then we pick canopy trees that have a interesting branch pattern in the winter, so they look almost sort of sculptural,
Mm.
as you look from the floors of the building that surrounds it.
Yeah.
So, and as opposed to some trees that they sort of lose all their best qualities when the leaves are gone. Um, that's one, and then we have some in the making that aren't built yet, that have that. This is sort of their foundation, and and what's interesting is, recently, more and more there's more and more interest in native or natural plantings, and pollinator gardens, and those sorts of things.
Hmm.
So that adds another dimension to it. If there's wildlife habitat, or pollinator, you get the activity of the insects and bugs that rely on that.
Yeah.
So, which is another, which is a dimension that has become really important, and that happens on. We just did an acre and a half roadside along Interstate 95, so that it's a pollinator planting, and it has its seasonality in spring flower, summer flower, fall color, and then the winter interest of um, um, the winter interest of the shrubs and trees that were planted. So that was public. Interstate 95 is a highly traveled, as you know, um, interstate, and so the visibility of that is significant.
Hmm.
And at an acre and a half, it's a good scale.
Yeah. And so you've been working on, a lot of very intimate scale projects and then some of these larger projects. And it seems like, we just mentioned the ironworks, and then there's this pocket park, Sono, which is really, really lovely. And so, but that's got a very intimate scale. And so when you bring that up to, a multi-billion-dollar campus like District Galleria, which is in White Plains, really incredible signature project for White Plains. So how do you scale that up? That sense of intimacy across a larger campus.
Again, back to the project team. That the team on that project on Galleria District, it's an incredible team. It's an incredible owner, and they as they look at, even though it's basically I think it's a 10 block project, 10 city blocks of a project, and it has 6 buildings. It will have 6 buildings on it that will house 3,500 units of living. So it's a massive project. And when you have the buildings, and then we start looking at the spaces in between the buildings, they break down very clearly into smaller spaces. And that project, even though they're smaller, they still need to accommodate a lot of people, because 3,500 units of housing is a lot of people.
Yeah.
Plus it's open to the public, and and the architects are integrating retail and restaurant on the ground floors of all the buildings. So they'll be activated in a variety of ways. And then so the spaces need to be designed to support those activities, as well as open space for people to come use it as, like they would a park. And so the space, the project sort of breaks itself down pretty easily, quickly into those smaller spaces. And so then the question just becomes, what's the design? And that's obviously where we pick it up from there.
Yeah, in this space, I mean, it's a really inspiring vision for how cities can be in the future. It's a really amazing merger of architecture and landscape together. The overall footprint of it, 48% is in the public realm. So it's really
right.
It's really like giving the city a new park.
It is, and you mentioned, when you mentioned the city, it's to their credit, that they're, allowing this developer to pursue such a massive project. In my opinion, this is what cities need to do. It's right. This site is right next to the train station that goes to New York and then upstate New York, and so to have a denser population in the middle of a city next to multimodal transportation it's the perfect combination of a project, and has a whole host of economic vitality components and environmental components, social components. It's got everything.
Yeah, it almost feels like these cities that surround New York City were always just kind of thought of as, I don't know, some kind of infrastructure for the city, some sort of like feeder system, and they didn't really actually think about the cities themselves. They were just kind of there to funnel people into New York. And but now that our lives are so much more distributed, and people are like looking at living in small cities again, there's so many opportunities for the kind of work you do all throughout.
Right.
All these places like White Plains, I'd say.
Yes.
So let's talk about the civic process a bit. So you said that hundreds of your projects have gone through local and state review. So
Yes.
has there ever been any kind of regulatory moments that you're proud of because it actually made the project better?
Yes. It there's several actually. The and back to Galleria District for a second. The regulatory process there um, involves it starts with, in this case, and it doesn't always do this, but in this case it starts, the mayor is heavily involved in every aspect of it. He's chairman of the planning committee. The planning committee is a very well versed group of people who care deeply about the city. And so it begins to when you have that kind of synergy within the approval agency, it doesn't feel like you're really asking for approval. It feels more like you're helping the city accomplish their goals and become more of the city that they want to be.
Yeah.
So, which is very rewarding.
Yeah.
And so it's as we approach the approval process in any city, I try and come at it from a perspective of a partner and not somebody, just seeking permission to do something.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's always best to have a peer-to-peer relationship. I try to do that with all of my partners too.
Yeah.
It's interesting how you can kind of frame things, almost like things almost establish themselves within the first 5 minutes of meeting someone, where
Yeah.
that relationship is going to go, right?
Yes.
So like on these big multi-stakeholder projects, right, like Greenwich Crossing or Galleria, what do you think is the biggest blind spot for how developers are approaching the entitlement? Maybe you could explain that to the audience, what that means.
Well, um, sometimes there's an underestimation of how many different ways an approval hearing can go. Um, and having been on the architectural review board in Greenwich for 6 years, I see it from both sides. On as a commissioner, sometimes we would have developers or their representatives come in and approach it in the exact opposite way I was just mentioning a minute ago, meaning that they would come to present to the commission, hoping to attain approval from the commission, but at the same time, um, they it's more like they're telling the commission what the commission is going to do, and not engaging the commission to to work with them. And that goes sideways very fast, because commissions are usually volunteer, and they care deeply about the communities because, which is evidenced by volunteering. And then for somebody, to unintentionally, I would say, sort of make the presentation in a way that's not, from coming at it from a partnership, but as opposed to, this is what I'm going to do, and you just need to approve it. It doesn't, it's not unrecoverable, but it makes it hard. And I've been in positions where projects have come to us that had unfortunately gotten started off on that foot, and then it becomes, the developer would ask us to, let's right the ship on this and get an approval. So we would do that. We would join the team, make the presentations, and then obtain approval.
Yeah. Is there a part of that process that you still find like thrilling creatively, or there's some constraints about it that really engage you?
Well, what really engages me is by the time we get to the actual approval hearing, where we're presenting and describing the project to not only the commission but also to the public. By the time we get to that point, you're so excited about it because you see all the potential that it brings, and and you know and as you probably know, you know there's a tremendous national need for housing, and if the project is housing focused, and you have a site within a city where it's being proposed, it's exciting because the city is so ready for it, and so and a lot of our work, they can't build it fast enough. People are moving in, as soon as they possibly can, and they fill up. So it's exciting whenever there's a project that's is filling a particular need for a city, and then to be a part of bringing that from beginning to seeing people live there and move around in the spaces, and becoming part of their lives.
Yeah.
It's very exciting.
So hey, I'm just trying to figure out how I might fit into some kind of process like this. Just talking to someone like you who goes through this permitting process. So, as you know, my company, we do documentation of landscape and architecture. So where would a fast, accurate as-built, like the streetscape, the datum, the neighboring conditions, would that de-risk any of those early moves for you?
No, it wouldn't at all. One instance that comes to mind is, we've been involved in several conversions of commercial office space to residential.
Mm-hmm.
The accuracy of an as-built is critical.
Yeah.
And one project in particular in Albany, New York, is 130, 100. I think maybe it's 100-year-old building, and no architectural drawings, no, certainly no as-built drawings, but yet it's being converted to residential, and so the architects need to know where every pipe is, where every component, that if they're going to tear a wall down or put a
Yes.
toilet somewhere, they need to know that they have clear space in the above it and below it in the floor below. So that would be a huge need met in the conversion of commercial space to residential. We're getting
Well, that's right in my backyard. Maybe it's not too late for us to go over and scan it. We'd be happy to.
Yeah.
We can talk about that offline.
Yeah.
But actually, that segues right into today's sponsor, which is actually my business, Scan to Plan. Today's episode is supported by Scan to Plan, a reality capture partner built for architects and landscape architects working in complex contexts. When your line in the sand is entitlement clarity, public realm precision, and fast approvals, we turn existing conditions into decision-ready certainty. Streetscape context scans, ADA slope and datum callouts, shell accurate heights, and deviation maps so you can negotiate with confidence. Deliverables are tailored to your workflow, precise 2D or lightweight BIM, backed by industry-leading level of detail and a price match guarantee. It's simple. We care, we can do it, and we continually improve. Adaptive reuse is climate work. Certainty lies in good data. Scan to Plan is the measure of excellence. Focus on design. We'll handle the capture.
That's great.
So that's just a brief message from our sponsor. Getting back to the interview. So in these community meetings, is there anything really surprising that's come out of there? Like, what's the most surprising thing that's come out of that?
Sometimes all of the meetings have a public component, so the public is free to give their opinion about the project and whether they support it or don't support it. Sometimes what's said during those moments is very surprising.
Yeah.
Especially if if somebody is unclear about the project. It's usually fear-based. You can tell what they're saying is they're coming at it from a perspective of fear of the unknown, or fear that it'll change something in a way that is unexpected. And so, it's so sometimes that can be very surprising. Other times, we could be presenting a project and you get a sense from the commission that, that it doesn't feel like they're, you know, really seeing the project the same way we are, and it might feel like it's headed toward either a revise and resubmit or do it over, which fortunately never happens. And then at the end, it turns out that they are supportive, and they you wind up getting an approval when you thought you were going to be back for another hearing.
Mhm.
And those are, of course, those are pleasant surprise. But for the most part, it's we try and keep surprises to a minimum. um,
Sure.
and so, but when they happen and they're like that, you get an approval sooner than you thought. That it's always a good thing.
So in the Sono project, you turn a vacant lot into a park that doubles as a flood basin.
Yes.
So what was that process like, and what was the tipping point that convinced the stakeholders that this ecology could be infrastructure?
Well, the client bought two lots. One was on the corner and one was adjacent to it. That had two separate houses that I don't think they'd been lived in quite some time, and they were in horrible shape. And so he bought it. He bought the two properties because they're next to an office building that he already owned, and basically just got tired of looking at them. And so after purchasing them, he was speaking with the economic development director with the city, and about tearing the houses down. And after the houses were down, and we went through a few rainstorms, we saw how much water the site collected from the adjacent sites.
Uh-huh.
And so environmentally, he didn't want to just put that water into the storm sewer system, because it should go back into the ground. Is where it belongs. And so that's what it led him to consider, what else could it be other than a piece of land with buildings on it. So the economic development director called me, and I was very familiar with the site because it's a route that I drive often. I'd seen it in those rainy and wet conditions, and so the economic developer called me, and I pretty much said, well, let's just turn it into a park that has the capacity to hold water in an aesthetic way while it recharges back into the ground. So she ran that by the owner, and he said, perfect, let's do it. And so we put it together, gave him the drawings, and he went right into building it. And so today there's a basin that looks a little bit like a Zen garden, which is it's got a rock edge around it and a gravel across the bottom, with a variety of plantings that achieve that seasonality we were talking about a minute ago. And
Yeah.
they're all native plantings, so they withstand that the condition of the site, the way that native plants can do. And so it's been in now for, I think, 3 years, and it's going strong.
Yeah, I mean, something I'm really learning as I do this podcast is just that, I feel like a common inspiration with a lot of my guests is that, the environment around us really impacts the way we think and the way we feel in our day-to-day lives. And I suppose architects think about that all the time, but most people don't. And then you look at the deck like the one you sent me for Galleria, and you just see this crushingly depressing, monotonous, bleak, dark landscape that surrounds people.
Okay.
I mean, it's this Galleria project. It's like the kind of thing that every small town wishes they would have, right? Because it's also connected with all kinds of event programming, and you've got the farmers market integrated into that. So once again, it sort of becomes like a urban hub, a city center, where a lot of these smaller cities have sort of lost their centers as they became more distributed, and people moved to the suburbs, and a lot of these cities don't really feel like they have much of a heart anymore.
That's the case, and as people are coming back to cities from more suburban areas, the vibrancy that they bring to meet that vibrancy with spaces like Galleria District is the perfect combination. It explains why it's living in a city is such a good thing, because you get the diversity of everything that a vibrant city can offer without having to necessarily drive 3 or an hour in the car to get somewhere. And so to have a role in that project is it's something that we're extremely excited about. And then when we do see people using these spaces, it's going to be incredible. There's water features, there's shade, there's sun, there's an outdoor event performance area, like you mentioned. So the programming of it that the developer will do will ensure that the vibrancy is kept alive, because it'll bring the variety of entertainment possibilities is enormous.
So you're working on a whole bunch of kind of big signature new construction projects here and there, and I would imagine they have all the kind of bells and whistles of all the new construction and BIM and all the technology that goes with it. For example, this Hamilton Green project has got smart glass that I guess it dims itself depending on the weather.
Yes.
So I mean, imagine there's all kinds of tech bells and whistles all around you all the time. And so what criteria do you use to decide when any kind of new technology actually deepens a project?
Well, there's a couple of there's technology that we employ to get the representative images created for a client. Things things like there's a program called V-Ray that is an excellent 3D modeling program.
Yep.
It has good finishes on the materials. It has a good library of symbols and images that you can insert into the image. So what we do as an office is not over technize everything, but have enough so that we can put together presentations that are on par with the rest of the design team, because some of these members of the design team are from some of the largest architecture firms in the world, and their work product is superior.
Yeah.
So we need to, not that we need to have the work product of a largest firm in the world, but the two exhibits need to look good side by side. So we employ technology to get us to that point and keep us at that point. And then on the built side, as things are being specified and constructed, we have great relationships with representatives from lots of material fabricators, and we invite them into the office frequently to give us updates on their products. What do they have that's new? Why is it a good product? And then if we have an opportunity to or a need to specify it on a project, then we know who to call to help us figure out how to do it. And those could be anything from structural materials to soil mixes that perform in a certain way given the condition where the soil is needed. Because soil that's on a roof is very different than soil that's in the ground. And so the technology that goes into mixing those specific and unique soils is it's still soil in the end, but the technology behind it has evolved tremendously, and it runs the full gamut, and then of course at the end the client needs to be left with something that's manageable and sustainable from an annual basis. And so the reliance on technology that goes into, say, irrigation systems, it's developed, it's advanced tremendously over the past years. The system will send an alert if something malfunctions, so that if say there's a valve broken and it's spewing water, it'll send an alert telling someone to come see to it. It'll automatically shut itself off if it detects an excessive amount of water lost in a short period of time. Environmentally that does tremendous things, but from an ownership perspective, it saves them a tremendous amount of damage potentially, and not only to the system but anything around it. So relying on that, on that kind of technology is critical, and so we just look for things that are that as we specify them within our projects, we look for things that offer that long-term sustainability.
Yeah. So when you I mean, obviously you're thinking long term, right? I mean, you're developing hopefully things that'll be around for 100 years, right? So 5 years after a project opens, let's say, when you return to it, what tells you that you got it right?
Well, that's sort of the point that gets back to, as you mentioned earlier, that our design approach is understated. One of the things that I've noticed about this profession, if things are sort of overly designed, their longevity doesn't seem to be the same as something that's right size design.
Yep.
And because what comes with our projects is back to the maintenance side of it. What comes with our projects is that it's maintainable without an annual budget that's untenable to a client. And so, because of that, it's able to keep its original aesthetic, and it retains the integrity that you designed into it in the first place. So picking material that is durable and lasting, and not specifying it in ways that it's not that puts it at risk, meaning to the weather or to exposure or whatever, then that ensures that it's going to be there for a while.
Yeah.
And so going back to a project that's been 5 years old or even older, it's exciting to see that it's held up, and of course that's all reliant on good construction methods also. So the contractors that build our work they have and need to have the same mentality that this is going to be here for a while, so let's do it right the first time.
Sure. So I mean, I'm sure you've mentored so many people who come through your firm, and you've got teams that as you mentioned, and so what is one thing that you feel like you always have to teach people about the public process, that you wind up teaching people over and over again who work with you?
Sometimes it's patience, just harping on that. And probably the easy one to teach is always be prepared.
Yeah.
Because you if you learn the hard way, then it's not as fun as if as if someone helps you realize it before you're learning it. And so it's it as working with younger, more recent graduates, just helping them understand that it's in the design for me in the design world, it's not necessarily only about what you're designing. It's about everything that touches and everything that it's connected to.
Yeah.
So that matters, and what are the edges of everything look like in order for the design to be successful um, and and fit appropriately within the greater scale space that
Mhm.
you're operating in. So sometimes it's the discussion is about, yes, the design is important, and yes, it needs to do everything that we're programming it to do, but how does it connect? At some point, it's going to meet something around its perimeter, and so that those connections oftentimes are just as important as the design itself.
Interesting. Yeah. So, well, practicing forward, it's also about evolving your values, not just your design, right? And so, are there any personal principles that you've held for a long time that you're rethinking now after running this firm for 11 years?
That's a hard one. It's more about strengthening, I think, viewpoints than it is about rethinking them. I
Uh-huh.
mean, everything evolves, over time. Something that is important now might not have been as important a few years ago. Um, so, so I guess just the willingness to evolve with, the circumstances or the nature of things is, um, it's not really rethinking it, but it's being willing to see that the horizon is, or that it's different than now than it was in the past, and
Yeah.
making the adjustment to remain relevant and to remain um, you know a key person that people seek out to work with.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can only say I would love to see more developments like this all throughout all these small
Yeah.
cities in the East Coast. I think it's as I said before, that thing in the Galleria, it's kind of exactly what every small city needs, and I hope they look at that as a great example for my small town of Troy, New York.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, Eric, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
It was great to have you today, and really great to learn more about your practice.
Thank you for having
Um,
me.
Absolutely. So, folks, you can learn more about Eric and his work at Eric Rains Landscape Architecture by visiting ericrains.com. And for more conversations like this, subscribe to Practice Forward wherever you get your podcasts. And I'm Owen Bush from Practice Forward Podcast. Thanks so much. Thank you once again, Eric. Great to see you today. Hope to catch up with you again soon.
I'd like that. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks so much. We'll
All right,
see you next
great.
time.